Hey everybody, my name's John and I am a enthusiast. I'm just an amateur. And my story begins with me shooting Nikon for a number of years. I shot a D50, then a D80, then a D7000. I probably shot that between those for 10 years or so. And then just last year, I decided that my D7000 was getting long in the tooth, so decided to switch brands. There wasn't a, I wanted to go mirrorless, and there wasn't a good Nikon option at the time, so I got a Fuji X-T30, and I got it with the kit lens. And one of the things I found out right away that I really didn't care for was the grip. I know so many of you know about this. I put an aftermarket grip on here. This is the Photocy grip, and the one of the problems with the Photocy grip is that it is perfectly smooth. It's a smooth piece of aluminum, and so you can see now I'm textured because I've put black duct tape all over mine so that I can get a good uh, feel for it, a good grip. And so now, it fits fairly well. If I'm in shooting position, my hand can mostly stay on the grip. So that's not too bad. I do feel my fingers rubbing the lens on this 18 to 55. I typically shoot the 18 and 55 kit lens, and then I have the Viltrox 56. Uh, and let me just go ahead and say this thing takes great pictures. There's no doubt about that. I'm very satisfied with the images that I get out of this. But what I'm not satisfied with has been the grip and having to deal with the buying the additional grip and then having to add tape to it. So it still doesn't feel like it's sliding out of my hands. And it's still not a, really comfortable fit in the hand. Well, there was a sale last week at Adorama on a refurbished Nikon Z5. And this Z5 comes with this is the kit lens, and it's the 24 to 50. And I just got it in the other day, and this morning I've spent some time, walking around, taking a few pictures, trying to compare to see, do I really see any kind of a much of a difference in the image quality? Um, what do I think about the feel in the hands? Uh, the usability, things like that. And the first thing I absolutely notice is yes, this grip is so much more pleasing to hold. It's textured all the way around. It's nice and deep. I don't feel my knuckles rubbing the lens. Um, it just fits in my hand better. Surprisingly, though, it's really not. Once you add the Photocy uh, grip to this, they're really about the same depth. One of them really isn't any. Trying to get this give you a good look at this. Um, yeah, there we go. One is not any really substantially. Um, well, definitely they're deep. One is deeper than the other, but height wise, that's what I was trying to do. There you go. Height wise, they really are about the same. Um, there's not a lot of difference in the way that your hand fits top to bottom. You're fitting about the same number of fingers on the grip, but just overall, it just does feel more comfortable. It's larger in every dimension and textured, and that makes it a lot more pleasing. Um, you also have a nice place to rest your finger on this one. On the back pad, there's a nice empty space, so that's nice. Um, some of the other things I notice is, first, I mean, everybody knows that the amount of controls that you have on the Fuji's is definitely better. As far as tactile controls, is definitely better than what you get on the Nikon. Um, everybody loves the Fuji dials, and for me, they're a mixed bag. But I've gotten used to them this year. And when I first picked up this Z5, I absolutely missed them. I'm gonna try to add a little light here, guys. I don't know if that helps any. But I absolutely miss the dials. It's taken a little getting used to get back to using the different buttons and the front dial and the rear dial. I just assumed that after a year of using the Fuji, once I picked up this, that I would feel like, oh, I'm going to be home again, and it's going to feel natural in my hand, and I'm going to go right to all of the controls. And no, that really hadn't been the case. Granted, I've only really been using it this morning, an hour or two here or there during the week, but no, it is taking a look at it used to. Now, one thing that I'll say is absolutely improved in this Nikon. Can you see the eye relief there? You know, those of you who shoot the X-T30, you know about your nose. You know about your nose rubbing the screen, and you're missing in your focus moving because your nose has now moved it. When I'm using this Nikon, my nose is not touching the screen. I can shoot comfortably with this. When I shoot the Fuji, I find that I periodically have to move the camera a little bit so that I could see the whole image, depending on how I have it mounted to my face. It's probably not going to, I'm sure you're not going to be able to see this, but if you just looked at the opening, the size of the opening on the back of the camera is just so much larger on the Nikon. It makes it really a lot more comfortable to use. So, I do like the Fuji controls. I think even the eye menu. That was the other thing I noticed. The when you use the quick menu on the Fuji, you get what is that? 4x4. You get 16 choices of things to have right there. When you use the eye menu on the Nikon, you get 10. And I like having all those choices. So let's talk for a minute about the price. I'm going to go ahead and share this screen. So this isn't specifically what I paid. Over here on the right, you see the refurbished Nikon. When the deal I got last week was for this kit with the lens was $1,099. That was $600 less than what they're selling it for. Now, I did see on eBay that you can find some used deals, maybe some other refurbished deals at some places I don't know as well. That would be in the 1100s, so a little bit more than the special that I got at Adorama, but nowhere near this. You know. Now, when I go over here to the Fuji on the left, this is the new price. I didn't see, they didn't have a used, Adorama didn't have a used for this kit, but I've looked at this in other places before, and you could easily get this used and in really good condition for $1,000 or a little less. So as far as my price is pretty comparable. Maybe I paid an extra $100 for the Z5. If I remember right, when I first got this camera, the X-T30, I got it, Black Friday deal, and it was crazy how little I paid for it. I want to say I paid $9.99 for the camera and lens, maybe even less than that. I don't recall for sure, but yeah, absolutely. This was when I got it at a better price. But, when you look at the Nikon and you think you could get this Z5 with a lens for close to the price that you could get this X-T30 with the lens, it makes this seem, to me, it made it seem like it was time for me to at least try the Z5. So, you know, if would I say that I would have, you know, I would have never been comfortable paying this $1,600 that they have it listed here. That sounds like, that almost sounds like a new price. I wonder if that's a misprint. You know, it's the new price has to be close to this. But you know, at $10.99 for the camera and lens, that was a good deal. Now, to me, it was a deal I couldn't pass up. The thing, though, that I'll tell you I don't like about this kit is, man, this zoom range and this aperture range on this lens is tiny, and you can really tell when you're shooting. I'll give you an example. The way that I figure it, there's a crop factor, right? So those of you who shoot Fuji and you shoot over here, you're used to shooting this 18, when you shoot this wide open at its widest aperture, you're at 18 and 2.8. Well, the equivalent for the Nikon, you know, if you take out your crop factor, you would need a 28 millimeter lens at 1.8. Well, I could match the 28 millimeter with the Z5 lens, but I can't get anywhere near to that 2.8 to match that with this kit lens. Does the kit lens take nice clear pictures? Absolutely. It takes wonderful images, and I'm going to show you a few in a moment. But the performance factors, yeah, that can't compete using this lens. I know that I could get a comparable lens from Nikon, but you know, I'm kind of cheap. I'm always looking for a bargain, and Nikon Z glass is seldomly offered at a bargain price. Maybe that 24-70 f4 might be in my future. I'd say it almost definitely has to be in my future because I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to upgrade this lens fairly quickly. But you know, for now, if we're just comparing this kit to this kit, that lens in the Fuji is very nice compared to the Nikon lens, even nicer. Okay, you know, all in all, I've been kind of on the fence this morning about which one of these I wanted to keep. Because of that, you know, a lot of it has to do with the lens and the prospect of how much I would have to pay for another lens. But you know, let's put it in these terms. If I wanted the Nikon 24 to 70, sorry, 24 to 70 f4s for Z mount, you know, that's $1,000. Now, I don't think that this lens is the equivalent of this 18 to 55. I think, well, let's say that it falls somewhere in between this. So let's take a quick look at, for that Fujifilm 18 55. Sorry. If only I would learn to type. 18 to 55. Let's see what happens now. Okay, so $6.99 for this. But remember, you know, if we were to make this come up with an equivalent parameter for the Nikon, this Fuji would have to be roughly 2.8 for the whole range. So I get it that you get a better focal length over here, but you lose some of that wide aperture with this. So let's check out the other lens. Um, if you wanted the 16 2.8 from Fuji, well, that's $200 more. You do get an equivalent aperture for the whole zoom range, and you do get a little improvement uh, in the focal length as well when you have this Fuji out at 55. You know, if you said this was equivalent of an 85 at the long range end, and the Nikon is 70 at the long end. Well, yeah, there's definitely an improvement in value, I'm sure, an improvement in performance with this Fujifilm lens, but it is $200 more. So, if you wanted to compare prices, I tell you that these things are roughly priced the same. You know, the 18 to 55 is $200 less than, um, I'm sorry, I may be getting that wrong. The 18 to 55 is uh, $300 less than the Nikon, but the 16 to 55 is $200 more. Um, value-wise for what you're spending, I think you're getting, I think they're priced about right. You know, it's your choice of, it would be your choice which one you think is a better fit for you. But I wouldn't say that either one of these three that we just looked at were a better value than the other. So let's take a look at some pictures. All right, these are some pics that I took this morning. We're looking at Capture One, and here's on my left I have a Fuji, and on my right is the Nikon. I tried to shoot these at similar ISOs and similar apertures. What really perplexes me is how much the shutter speed, I shot these in aperture priority, how much the shutter speed changed from one to the other. So on the left, the Fuji was at f4, ISO 6400, 36 millimeter focal length. And then it shot this at 1/25th of a second. On the right is the Nikon at ISO 6400 f6.3 and 1/10 of a second, 0.1 of a second. So the Fuji shot a little faster, but yes, there's some difference in the aperture, not a whole lot, but I definitely see a difference. When I look at these, I see a difference in the color. That's the first thing I notice. You know, I'm sure you notice it too. If we were to say, which one of these is true to life, the one on the right, the Nikon, is absolutely close, as close as you could expect to true to life. It is very, very close. And when I start looking for, looking at the detail of the two images, I want to say that they're maybe about the same when it comes to the, grain and noise in the dark areas. I don't really see, and this really surprised me. I thought the Fuji was going to be a lot different in this picture, but it's not. You know, if I look in the black areas, like over here in the pirate sail, um, I can't say that the Fuji is substantially worse than the Nikon. And in some of the samples that I looked at, some of the images I took, the Fuji may have even been better in some of these shots. Right now, I'm looking in this kind of shaded area way off to the left of center. And if you did look at the grain, one thing I would say is that the grain in the Nikon looks smoother. I'm not going to say that the Fuji is showing worms, but there's definitely a kind of worminess, I guess, to the grain that I see off to the side of this. Again, looking at the color, it's almost like the color shifts maybe blue, maybe green in the Fuji. And the Nikon, I would say, is very much more true to life. Uh, uh, and, remember, we're shooting with the kit lens, and that I'm impressed at, maybe not the performance, maybe not the characteristics or the specs of the Nikon lens, but for what it is, at this aperture, at this speed, it does really well. Let me show a couple of pictures. These are outdoor pics. And this time I've got again, the Fuji on the left, the Nikon on the right, and, standing in the same spot, shooting one right after the other. ISO 3200 on both of these, f4 on the Fuji, f6.3 on the Nikon. I'm guessing that's that's your 1.5 crop factor there. And again, the speed, the Fuji took this image. Now, granted, it is darker, but it shot the image way faster. 1/3800th, 1/3800 versus 1/640, 1/640 for the Nikon. I don't, I would say that, and again, this was aperture priority. I set the ISO, I set the aperture, and I let the camera choose the shutter speed for both of these. And, when I look at them, full size side by side, the Nikon is a more pleasing photo in this regard. It's definitely got more color depth and more dynamic range. The Fuji image is flatter. It's absolutely flatter. You don't see anywhere near the variation in green in the foliage that you do in the Nikon. The Nikon is, yes, it's a brighter image, but look at the way it does these the colors. I don't know if you guys could see this. There's definitely more contrast. There's more variation from light to dark over the same area. So I think the Nikon did better at capturing this image, from the color standpoint, just like we saw in the other image. It was more true to life, and here I'm absolutely seeing more contrast and more depth, more color depth, even though I'm using just that 24 to 50 lens on the Nikon. I'm going to show you another one. I'm going to skip some of these, but I thought this was a good variation. This is right behind my house, and I don't know if you can see this. This is ISO 100 this time, f4 for the Fuji, f6.3. The Nikon shot this at 1/30th of a second. The Fuji shot it at 1/60th of a second. When I look in this area up here, I absolutely see more color and more variation in color and more contrast in this kind of darkened water area. I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to see that, but I definitely can see it. When I look at the central image, what I was focused on, this iris just pops out of the Nikon. I looked at several, there's a chance that there's a little bit of miss in the focus on this. There's a chance there is on the Fuji, but I had several images like this, and I didn't, this was the best one. So I'm not willing to say that. But can you see the variation in color and detail in this? I was probably 5 feet away, but this, man, this was a great capture on the part of the Nikon. And Fuji is, if I hadn't looked at the Nikon, I'd say, oh, this is a great image. You know, we're going to go up here to the top and look at this. I'm sorry. Let's try to see if I don't have the same. Yeah. So the there's a blue quality to the Nikon version of this purple iris. Um, the Fuji version definitely has this as a purple, no doubt about it. But I think if I went out there and looked at it, there's so much more variation in the color in the Nikon version than in the Fuji. So, guys, this is, I sure would like to know if you guys have any idea why the Fuji is shooting faster than the Nikon with when I try to set ISO and aperture equivalently. Now, I know I've read before that some people think that Fuji plays a little fast and loose with their ISOs, that maybe their 100 ISO really isn't equivalent to a 100 with other brands. It may be something like that. But if without going into autofocus speed and frame rates, capture rates, or video specs, if I just had to ask myself which of these cameras took the best image, it would be the Nikon, even with the kit lens, especially color-wise. Which I never thought I would say because everybody raves about Fuji colors. But, granted, I didn't take any pictures of people. There's no baby pictures in here to compare skin tones with, but just true to life, color depth, contrast, all of those elements were much better in the Nikon. If you were to ask me which one did I want to hold, I would definitely qualify that. If I wanted to hold and work with one camera for just a few frames, I definitely would say, yes, I want to use the Nikon. But with the Fuji, there is something to be said about weight. It is lighter. And, is it light enough to make up for what you lose in the image? I could see somebody making that decision. I could see somebody absolutely saying the Fuji is good enough. And I'm not a camera reviewer, but I've heard plenty of camera reviewers say that kind of thing. The rest of the ergonomics, buttons and dials, yeah, you're gonna like the Fuji more. It feels, now that I've used it, I'm used to the controls and I like the controls a lot. But what's more important than the controls, though, this eye relief right here, this being able to shoot, see the whole frame without having to move the camera, being able to bring this up to my eye without my nose rubbing all over the touch screen, that's a big deal. That makes the usability of this Nikon way better than on this Fuji. I'm sure somebody is going to come and tell me that it's not a fair comparison, that I should be comparing this. But here's the rub. I should be comparing this to an X-T3. Here's the rub. I don't have an X-T3. I'm not a reviewer. I'm just an amateur, and this is the only thing I have to compare with. So I was, I've been looking for these kinds of reviews, for things that are in my price range, like an X-T30 or an X-T3 with the Z5. And there's a couple of comparisons you'll find online. I don't know if they use the things that were as close to comparably priced as this, you know, a refurbished Nikon kit versus the new or refurbished or used Fuji kit. Um, if I was comparing images with the X-T30, from what I understand, there wouldn't be a whole lot of difference. The images would still, you know, with the same sensor and similar processor, the images would still be the same out of the Fuji, whether it was X-T30 or the X-T3. So um, at this point, I think what, you know, I can't tell you that I am satisfied yet with the Nikon. I think I need to get a different lens on this thing and see if I can get some improvement that way. Oh, here's one thing, another thing I did do that I didn't talk about. Um, one of the tests that I did was the autofocus, and you know, I don't have an Atomos Ninja to put on the top of these things for you to be able to see it, but when in the little bit of tracking that I tried to do, you know, setting the autofocus point and then moving the camera around. Um, the Nikon had a really uh, uh, I really appreciated the way the Nikon handled that. It gave me a single square, and once I clicked on the touch screen, it locked onto an object. And from that point forward, wherever I moved the camera around, it stayed on that object. The Fuji does it with the wide area tracking, but once you have it set in that, you have to have it set in the wide area, which means it's going to put 6 or 8 red tiles on the screen, and they're going to blink in and out as you move the camera around. They seem to stick, but that all of that commotion from those blocks, it was distracting. It was just a nicer interface on the Nikon, and you know, I don't even know what firmware I have on here yet. Um, but with whatever it is that it came with, I definitely liked the way that functioned better on the Nikon. So, um, you know, that's all I got, folks. I hope this. I don't know if this is going to help anybody. I don't think I'm giving anybody um, any great advice, but I think what I'm going. I think if I was going to have to make an assumption, I think my assumption is going to be this: once I can compare an 85 millimeter 1.8, where I plan to get the Viltrox. Once I get the 85 millimeter Viltrox for the Nikon and can compare it to my 56 millimeter Viltrox, I think that's going to make it a much more fair comparison. And I've got a feeling that I'm going to like the Nikon better. I think I'm going to like the image that comes out of the Nikon better. And I think I'm going to like the autofocus on the Nikon better. So, hey, if you have any comments, if you can answer my questions about the shutter speed that the cameras were choosing, please go ahead and add some comments. And thank y'all for watching.